Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session. Just waiting for a few more people to roll in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Remember, you can submit your questions in the Q&A or the chat, or if you would like to just say it, you can go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll unmute you.
Hello, everybody. I guess we'll get started. Looks like we got a question coming in today. I'm Eric. I'll just go ahead and introduce myself real quick. I've been with Decisions about 5.5 years now. On the professional services team and a lot of project delivery. Looks like we got a question from Chris Lockstedt. Let me go ahead and read that out. Common problem. When using a data repeater, we have a list of entities for the form input and a new list from the form output. Okay. To figure out which ones should be deleted, we iterate through the input list. When one input entity is not found in the form output list, then we delete that entity. Is there a more effective, efficient way to identify what is in this list but not in that list? Let me think this one through real quick. Yes, I believe, Chris, the way sounds like on the output of the form inside of the flow, you're looping through the current list and checking it against the previous list.
Yeah, that's been the normal way that we've actually figured out what to delete.
Yeah, that's typically the pattern that I would use as well. I know we do something similar for when trying to view if, like, when we have, like, we're managing maybe like group membership for accounts. So we would have the list of all the groups that the account is in. And then when someone would want to remove themselves from a group, or someone managing that group would want to remove an account, we would do something similar. We'd compare the lists and then delete them. I don't think you're doing anything inefficient or ineffective there. I think that's probably the best approach, is to compare the lists.
Yeah, it seems to me that I mean, I guess my sense is that this is going to work when you're looking at what I'll call sort of a short list, something under 100. I don't know how much this method tolerates growth, but then on the other hand, I'm not entirely sure if the data repeater would tolerate much more than 100 either.
That's a good point. I guess, how are you doing the comparison? Are you just checking like the ID fields, or?
Well, I mostly lean on the entity ID. So, and so the thing that we end up using a lot of is we can get the, from the input list, we actually basically take the all entity, from it, so that then I have a list of string, which is actually the entity IDs. And then on the output list, the same operation gets me another list of string, which are these entity IDs. And then from there, there's this step that asks, is this string in that list, right? And so that's sort of been the essential logic for figuring out which, then we could kind of go through each one and ask, are you in that list? And that's where I find myself thinking, well, that could be, as you, that one step, it has to search that second list every time for each of the input things. And that can really bog, that sort of can grow on you very quickly as your list grows. And so I can imagine there may be, I'm sure in a different system, you might approach this a different way. And that's where I found myself wondering, has anyone really thought about it, or is really the fact that, since I'm going into a data repeater and that kind of requires I keep my list short anyway, that what I'm fussing about doesn't really matter.
Well, what you're comparing though is, even though you have a rich object that is output from the data repeater, you're still just comparing a list of strings to see if one string is in another list of strings. So even if you have a lot of records, at least it's not, the table, quote unquote, isn't very wide with a lot of richness. It's just a list of strings. So I think that's probably the most efficient thing you can do with this current design and pattern, would be to only be comparing a string, which you already are doing. I think you'd run into more efficiency problems if it was, you were looping through the actual object each time.
Yeah, and I think in one other project, I resorted to building what I started calling a hash key field, where it was sort of like, let me put together the 4, logical key fields into a string, just so I can do the same string kind of check. Are you in that list? But that's kind of an exception. That's sort of a rare application where I had to resort to something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that it would get, it would take the system too long to iterate through a list of strings, even if it was, in the upper hundreds of strings.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Carlos.
Hi.
All right, I see a question here. Go ahead and read this real quick. Is there a method available for page in decisions that allows emulating the behavior of the tiles in the App Store. Okay, interesting. When trying to model a page with a design equivalent to that of the App Store, I cannot find a way on how to have a method in the page so that the tiles behave responsively as they do there. In a dynamic change of screen size, for example, there were 8 in total in the first row, and it's width adjusted. There are 5 above and 3 below. Is it like a carousel that adjusts the position of the images? Okay. So let's see. Let me go ahead and share my screen and I'll look. I haven't actually investigated what that page looks like, but if I find, let's see, how do I get to the App Store? And how do I get to the App Store? Is it under System? App Store. Okay, so I think I'm familiar with the view that you're talking about. I'm not exactly sure how to get to that. If anyone else on the call knows how to get that, otherwise I'm going to keep poking around and try to figure out how to get to that.
You can see that.
Excuse me?
In the App Store, in the main App Store.
Oh, here it is. Okay. So it's this page right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the first thing I would do if I was approaching this problem is I would try to find out like how this page is defined. And let's try to see. So I would go to the folder view and maybe see if it's a hidden page within this folder. And it doesn't look like there is any
It
page
looks
data.
like to be something inside decisions, but it's not available like a page.
Yeah, so there is an App Store folder. There is a page somewhere for this. I'd like to try to find it. So that's what I would try to do, is try to see how this page is designed, because this is either way, it's a default page. Let's see. So the behavior of this folder. Do all folders look like this? No, just the My Apps folder has this App Store page. So let me go ahead and look and see if I can, maybe we can query a database. Maybe let's see, what can we query? The My Apps folder maybe, or the App Store page. So Studio, page name, App Store. Star from entity folder. I think there. Let's see if we can find this page for entity name. Like App Store. So the only thing we have here is a flow that makes you navigate to it. And I don't think that this is some flow. That is on the, looks like it's on the App Store page. Navigate to App Store. My apps. Okay, so I'd like to. I kind of wanted to see how this page is built. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how to find
Okay.
it. I do know that we do have. I haven't used this component, but we do have a responsive grid component, and that's probably what they're using here. If it's moving like that, I believe that's. I kind of wanted to find the page for you, but I believe we can just try and recreate it real quick,
Okay.
or recreate an example like it. So it'd be a page, and we'll just leave it default for now. Actually, let me create a folder for you. So this is for responsive App Store page. And in that page, then we'll go create our page. And I'm pretty sure that's what they're using.
What?
So it'd be under the container types. So by default, I think you have the pages set to container type of grid, and either they make the whole container the root container. That's what I'm editing right now, is the root container of the entire page. They probably made it either responsive or grid layout. One of these two, I believe, will give you that behavior. And I'm not exactly sure how to use them, but I can try to find the documentation for them. But those are the containers that they're using. So there's a responsive grid layout, how to use responsive container forms. The documentation that you'll see will be kind of geared more towards forms, but the page designer is essentially the form designer, just without form components. So you'll be able to get the that behavior out of it. So if I were you, I would maybe work with these couple.
Okay.
Play with those two, the grid layout and the responsive. And if you see some of in this documentation, it helps you kind of, they're able to, I think, see, look, they're able to move that forth, and then they collapse in that same fashion. You see the screen, the animation when they resize the screen. Is that the effect you're looking for? Is having it the form respond to a smaller size and then shift the components into a horizontal frame instead of a vertical one? Carlos?
Yes.
Okay.
I will try in that way. Okay.
Perfect.
It's enough with this. Thank you.
All right. Glad I could help. Hey, Carlos, I see that you have another question. Would like to know what query allows to see where the last objects modified by a user in decisions. Okay. So that information is stored on the entity header table, I believe. Let me make sure I have the table name right. Entity header data. So the way decisions works, if the item that you're talking about exists in a folder somewhere, like these forms and these flows,
Yeah.
they also, the fact that they exist in a table, I mean in a folder, means that there also is another record in the entity header data table. And it's really just the header data, which is when it was modified, who was it modified by, what the name of it is, and what type of element it is. And if it's a form, then it might be stored in another table. Or if it's like a document, it might also be stored in another table, the actual data about it. But the header data for every type of thing that could possibly be in a folder is stored in a table called the entity header data. And that's where you get just the common fields that anything that could be in a folder all has share, which is the ID, what type of thing it is that's in the folder, its name, and then of course, if the last person that modified it and the date that it was last modified. Does it answer your question, Carlos?
Yes, and I have one more question in that direction. For instance, how do you identify all the forms that you have in a project? Where are there, or
sure? So if we wanted to like maybe we wanted to filter this query by entity type short name, I believe, let's see if we can do, I'm not sure how they're spelling it. Maybe let's see if they actually, let's just do this. Okay, so there's a couple different types, but there's like a form element.
Okay.
Let's see. So these are actually, this is interesting. These are, looks like these are actually components. But here,
yes, there is a form. Yeah.
Yeah, there's your forms. So it looks like it would just be form.
And then you can do it for all the steps also?
All the what?
Each kind of step that
The
exists
steps?
in decisions, the step. You
Okay.
can do it also?
I believe so. So I think what I would use for that would probably be, so what I'm querying is a database, of course. You can always find everything in the database, but there's probably some default reports that will help you with that, like that come with decisions out of the box that do something similar, but they actually put it in a report. So if you're an admin, under system administration, system tools, flow management, we do have some more reports here that I think would help you, such as the flow structure report. And I believe the flow structure report will show flows, each flow, and what steps are registered in that flow, the step names of the registered in the flow. This might be more useful to you than just knowing our full list of step names. This is how the steps are related to the flows and which flows are using the steps. And how yep. So I believe using these reports, this flow system tools flows management, there's a lot of useful things in here that I think if you're trying to figure out and narrow down things, you can look in here. And the flow structure report, so I believe, let me go ahead and edit that report. Yeah, this one is kind of a custom report. So it's not like, I think we're doing a lot of joins within the database, like behind the scenes, to join all this data together. So if you notice that this report doesn't have a view SQL button, it means that this report itself, this data source, is kind of built in code, because it's probably doing a lot of joins. So all the raw data is in the database, and probably amongst a bunch of different tables. But instead of having to make you write that query, we've kind of put it together for you in this report.
Okay, great.
Yep. Okay, Rob Dubnik has a question. Will async flows spawned off simultaneously be run in parallel or sequentially on the same thread as each other? Any way to affect this behavior? Can I designate the async flow to work off a specific worker queue? Great question, Rob. I am not super familiar with how the worker queues work. I know when you have an async flow, and let's, I guess, maybe to make this more demonstrational, I guess I can try and put one together real quick. So async, Rob. All right.
Yeah, my specific use cases, I've got a trigger flow that I spawn off an async flow, and I may have several things coming in to that trigger flow around the same time.
Okay, and this is literally a trigger flow like on a case entity? Is that what you're referring to?
So I've got a case entity with a trigger flow. It spawns off some asynchronous work. I expect maybe 4 or 5 cases will come in, right around the same time, maybe a few milliseconds apart. And just trying to think about are those each going to have their own thread of execution, or is there a way to direct them to work in a sequential kind of worker queue fashion, kind of thing? If so, then, I have to do less to manage, timing and state on the for the use case on that front.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're getting at here. So you're calling, actually, so we would actually want to call this flow asynchronously.
And if you're sharing, I don't know if you're sharing on that.
Yeah, I just set it up. So let me go ahead and share now. So this is in the studio. So I'm going to go ahead and call flow 1. So here's where you've called this flow asynchronously.
Yep.
So it sounds like these 2 options here is where you're kind of having some questions, and what can you harness these to help?
Yeah, it's exactly. It was kind of looking at those options, understand what does it mean to designate a named queue or the default queue, and then what does it mean to have to, under what's the scenario where specifying a thread count is useful or not. Could I, for instance, say I just want to have one thread, give it a name, and then everyone's going to kind of work, from that same thread, or.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, Rob. This is a little bit out of my expertise. I haven't had to use these features as much.
Okay.
Anyone else on the call familiar with this? Otherwise, we'd maybe take this offline with you and do some research for you, Rob.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
I know that. Yeah, maybe let's just leave it at that. I know playing with this, usually when we end up using this number 4 is we end up working with an architect to help increase like the execution time, but not necessarily on how to manage which ones get kind of worked, in which order they get worked.
Which order, just that they work sequentially. So that's cool. We can, if there's an offline way to get information on that, that's okay. Maybe as a follow-up question, you were showing the profiler earlier, and I've used that a little bit. I'm just wondering, is there a way to show how much memory is being consumed by steps in the process, or with the profiling? Just trying to get a sense for memory footprint.
Yeah, let's take a look. So a profiled object, I don't think so. I think you would use.
You get timings, right?
It's really just timings. It's
yeah.
It's used for finding bottlenecks.
Gotcha.
What we've typically done when it comes down to trying to pinpoint how like this decision service is utilizing memory, we would ask for like a memory dump file. It could be pretty big, but I know our support team has asked for that, and we would help analyze that that memory dump file to see if there's inefficiencies. To dive deeper, like the profile will just tell you, hey, this flow is taking a long time, and you can say the steps taking a long time.
Right.
But then the memory dump, and I think I have that document around somewhere. I can try to find it real quick. We usually send it to customers if the support team needs to investigate something at the memory level.
Gotcha. I think we may have used that before, so that's
okay. Perfect.
That's good to know. Is the hotspots on here? What does the hotspots panel indicate? Is that just timing based?
I believe so.
Or invocations or something?
Probably both. Yeah. Not either one. That would make sense. I'm not sure. It might be one, or it might be both.
Okay.
I wonder if I can find out exactly on this page how that tile is sourced. So yeah, this is a full page with a specific behavior. And I can't even see the folder view.
Yeah.
I'm imagining it is. That could be a follow-up question though. That's something I'd have to ask the development team, since like I don't think I can access this page in the designer to find out what's more about it. Some of these things are like the App Store, I think are hard coded in like the source code of decisions. So that could certainly be a follow-up.
Yeah, I was just curious on that. Thank you.
Yeah, did you want us to follow up with you on that? I guess Sabrina, how does that work? Would we like submit a? Can you keep track of? I
assume it's the number of times it's being called. So if there is some information that you follow up on with the other question and you've got that, it'd be good to know.
Okay, I think we have your contact info. We can probably send it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Sabrina, do you mind just creating that as an action item for me after this call?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Hey, Chris, I believe you raise your hand. You have another follow-up question.
Yeah, so about that hotspot, I would also be curious just to understand at least what does it mean. I mean, it sort of
like how it's sourced.
Well, and it seems to be suggesting that that somehow an algorithm has determined I have so many spots that are quote hot, right? And the question mark that then begins is, okay, what's normal and what might it be telling me in terms of what should I be looking for in terms of, I mean, one of the things I'm wrangling with at the moment is that I have users who are upset with performance at this point. And so that's catches my eye. What does this hotspot mean? And then what would it instruct me to go looking for? In terms of maybe that's just, there's a popular thing and that's normal, or is there, I'm kind of trying to understand what does that number mean, and what does it and what might it recommend that I go looking for in terms of trying to help my own software be better?
Sure. Yeah. Like if it's an expected behavior potentially, or it actually is something that needs further investigation. You're not being indicated. There's no confirmation there, right? You just are aware that there are 7 random hotspots and you're not even sure where they are.
Right. I mean, I'm sort of thinking that, we have 2 groups of application users who are the major complainers, but on the other hand, one of them, I could have told you they're going to be upset with what just happened. And then the other group, well, they're actually the other heavy users of our system. So, you know, between one of them, we kind of had a, you know, unfortunate series of events that, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, this is going to be slow, guys. Sorry. We'll have to fix that up. And then for the other group, I'm sort of scratching my head about, I wonder what's going on over there. But since they are the primary users, it's no wonder that they're the ones throwing in most of the interesting reports. Not that that's a bit of a tangent, but that just comes back to, yeah, well, what does the hotspot tell me then?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a takeaway. We can follow up with both you and Rob on this once we get confirmation from the developers. Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
All right, Carlos, I think you have another open question regarding translating the entire decisions environment. Okay, translation into another language. Is there any method that allows translating any element of the decisions environment? For example, the expression folder view that appears at the top of the screen, or any other main messaging from decisions. Interesting. So I do know that I'm assuming you're aware of the translation feature, and that it's really, I think, designed for forms. Is that the experience that you've experienced so far, Carlos? It's to help you translate decisions forms.
Okay, but what about the entire environment? I mean, for instance, we work with Spanish sectors, and what we can do with the main messages that appears.
Okay, yeah. So let me do some research real quick to see if that is possible for the entire environment.
I mean, not necessarily in the studio segment, just for the portal.
The portal, okay.
But if you give the user the availability of the commands where he can define the filters or many things, it is interesting to can make this in the local language.
Yeah. See the language with our language support. Okay, so I've got some documentation I'm looking at right now, setting up a new language. So you have to, this is the whole thing I think you're seeing, is adding the whole, your dictionary languages. But that I think really just stands. I think I've seen this done. Okay, can you do this with the portal? Okay, so here's the overview of what our language offering is. An additional. the user UI experience and user UI experience. I feel like it's mostly designated for forms. Only able to translate static elements. Port title. Okay. Yeah, I mean, according to our documentation, it looks like it's mostly for forms and reports and not necessarily for like some of these things. But these small things that you're talking about they're elements themselves. So maybe what, like this menu, like would we translate this entire menu? Were we able to figure out how to translate this entire menu?
Yeah.
Is your users like, there is are you aware of like our Chrome list feature for a page? So
I think not something automatically from the navigation, have to be something that professionally have to be considered.
Sure. So when you design pages like this profile page, if you had to happen to design it, we do have a feature when you can turn Chrome off, and the Chrome really is the whole portal. This might be another solution, but in this view here, there is no folder view, there's no navigation, and it's really just the elements that you designed for your users.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's literally just pages. And then of course you can right click them and have the folders and flows. I mean, the flows and the forms run and just be displayed. Oftentimes when I'm delivering solutions for customers, we end up going with that Chrome list feature because they don't want to worry about the folder tree or anything else. Even though we have a portal, we don't use, the only benefit to the portal is really like folder navigation, but you're able to do that on pages with tiles. You can navigate to different folders and different pages within tiles. And we've even put like logout buttons as well, and kind of manage and design the entire experience for them through decisions pages, and then just turn the Chrome off. So they have like that. It's really just showing this one window, that the content of the element that you actually handcrafted and designed.
And how do you force the Chrome off from the navigation?
So the way I turned it on, like you saw me do it, I turned it off for the user, like by putting it into the URL, but you don't have to do that. There are ways to add it to like the someone's account that they're kind of only experiencing the environment in the Chromeless state. So let me see if I can remember how that was done. Can it be done at the account or the group level? Where we would job title, maybe it is at the group level. We did this for one of my previous projects. Yeah, okay, so this default URL parameter here for the portal settings, you can add the Chrome equals off to it. I'm not sure exactly the setting of this. You might have to experiment with it. You might have to have the @ sign in it. I'm not sure, but that adds that default URL parameter to anyone that's in that group. So when they log into the system, when they open up decisions, it's going to include that parameter in there.
Okay.
At Chrome equals off. That's just one solution for you, is to just get rid of the entire skin of decisions and manage it by pages.
Yes, sir.
I think that's probably another follow-up I need to have to see for sure. Let's see, can translate stuff. Okay, let's see. I did get a response from someone from my team. You can translate stuff in the portal, but only static text, things like folder names or anything dynamic on a page won't get translated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, static text is what they want to set. Yeah. So then you might end up finding some dynamic things that don't support the translation. So that's and that might be okay. You might be able to but for instance, like this folder view page, like it's a page itself. If on, let's see, because you can just rename the page data potentially. Well, I think there's a way, specifically for folder view, there might be a way to actually hide that entirely if you don't want that to be shown either. Yeah, there was a forum post I remember reading about this. One second. Like if it's just folder view that's giving you a problem, then we might be able to. Yeah, so here I just pulled up. So we have a forum, support.decisions.com/forum. I believe you can get to it by doing forum. No, I think that's it. Yeah, support.decisions.com/forum. So I went to the forum and I searched for the hide folder. Like I just searched for folder view. And because I remember this coming up, and there's a post here for hiding it. And it's a portal setting that you can toggle to remove folder view for specific and that, if you're 90% translated and you just have a couple areas like this, there might be a portal setting to turn off and hide that feature from the portal entirely if you can't translate it. So those are a couple of options for you, Carlos.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good luck. If it doesn't go well though, you might want to explore the Chromeless state as well. But let us know how that goes.
Just to give an immersive experience for the user, no?
Yeah, I understand. You're trying to get a Spanish version of the portal. All right. Do you have any other follow-up questions?
No.
All right. So Carlos, I think you're actually the only one left right now. So if you don't have any follow-up questions, I guess, Sabrina, maybe is it to go ahead and keep this open for a little bit longer, see if anyone else wants to join. We got about 5 minutes left here.
I think we're good to end it there.
Great. All right, Carlos, thank you so much for your participation today. Any other closing words, Sabrina?
No, just be sure to join tomorrow if you have any more questions. Of course, just to reiterate, we do this Monday through Thursday from noon to 1. So always happy to help or have you and help.
All right, take care.
Bye, everyone.